don't have all the solutions, don't know why God allowed that person to go through this, but we feel compelled to give an answer. We feel compelled to say something in the moment. Sometimes we don't have anything to say. So instead of saying anything, أو بالعربي بدل ما نفتي, with all due respect, practice what this guy is saying. Be that friend who can be silent in the moment of despair and confusion, who can stay with us in an hour of grief and bereavement, who can tolerate not knowing, not curing, and not healing. It's very hard to be that person, because I want to help my friend. I want to offer any words of wisdom or comfort and give them peace, but I don't know what to say. So it's very challenging to sit silent and accept the fact that I don't know and I don't have anything to give to that person. It's hard, because our human nature, as you guys said, we're loving, we're compassionate, we're caring, we're all these beautiful things. But I have to learn to be okay that I don't know. I have to accept my powerlessness, and I have to accept my limited ability to come up with excuses or reasons to explain that this person is going through this عشان whatever happened. I'm going to read it again for the third time. Be that friend who can be silent with us in a moment of despair and confusion, who can stay with us in an hour of grief, who can tolerate not knowing, not curing, and not healing, and face with us the reality of our powerlessness. That is a friend who cares. Be that person. Be that person. Be okay that you're going to go through pain and suffering when another person shares with you their pain and suffering, and sometimes you're not going to know the answer. Sometimes you're not going to know what to say. Sometimes you're just going to sit and cry with them, and that's all what they need. Not your words, not your wisdom, not anything, just your tears, or the hug, or acknowledging them and validating their pain. Friendship is one of the greatest gifts a human can receive. Friendship is being with the other person in joy and in sorrow, even when we cannot increase their joy or decrease the sorrow. That's against our human nature. When I see one of my friends sad, I want to help them have a better perspective about life. I want to help them feel okay. And if that person is happy, I want to share their happiness with them. But sometimes I don't know what to say. Sometimes I don't know what to do. And I need to be okay with the fact that I don't have all the answers. So it's okay to not know how to increase their joy, and it's okay not to know how to decrease the sorrow. That's fine. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Sometimes we overburden ourselves just trying to help other people, and by the end of that conversation or by the end of that experience, we get hurt more instead of helping more. Does that make sense? Listening is much more than allowing another to talk while waiting for a chance to respond. Listening is paying full attention to others and welcoming them into our very beings. The beauty of listening is that those who are listened to start feeling accepted, start taking our words more seriously, and discovering their true selves. Most of the time when I'm sitting with someone and they're sharing something with me, 95% of the time I'm trying to think of what I'm about to say, right? I want to offer anything, any answer, come up with a joke, whatever it is. So I'm not really 100% there with them. I am physically present, but I'm not mentally and emotionally connected with that person. I'm trying to come up with an excuse. I'm trying to come up with an answer. But what he's saying here is that listening is just being there with that person, not thinking what I'm about to say, but just I'm there for that person, accepting them. And once that person feels accepted, they're going to be able to listen to any advice or any words of wisdom or comfort or peace that you have to offer. But if you don't make that person feel accepted, that no matter what you say, you're not going to make that person feel better. Even if you have the right answer, even if God appeared to you and told you this person went through this, عشان kaza, 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 if you don't make that person feel accepted, they're not going to listen to you. So you have to be not just physically present with that person, physically, mentally, and emotionally present with that person for them to feel accepted, and then later on they're going to be able to accept your words. One of one of the, I don't know what's the right word to say, one of the most touching verses in the Bible, or not verses, one of the most touching stories in the Bible is Jesus and Lazarus' story. Not the fact that he died and then he made them come alive again, not this part. We've seen Jesus as a human being show his human side. And we've seen that happen in a lot of different stories across the Bible. But this was one of the stories that showed, at least for me, his human side in a way that I can relate to. He didn't cry just because sin happened and made Lazarus die. He cried because he lost his friend. Every time Jesus went to this town, he would stay over and sleep over at Mary and Martha and Lazarus' place. So they were friends, they were more than friends, they were family to him. And when this experience happened and he lost one of his friends, the Bible didn't make it look nice. The Bible could have skipped. John could have skipped that part. He could have said that Jesus went and he raised him from the dead. So it's the same story. But why did we see this part? To be able to understand and accept that when I go through something extremely painful, it's fine that I express it in any way, shape, or form. We have something in our Middle Eastern culture is that guys can't show emotions, or they can't cry in public, or they can't do this. And women have to grieve in a certain way, whatever that we have been taught or that we've seen in our culture. But what Christ have shown in this specific situation is that it's okay to go through the experience, and it's okay to grieve in any way, shape, or form that works for you. And even if I don't know what to say, I'm going to be there for that person not knowing what to say. The last thing, أنتوا لسه بعيد قوي. I'm looking at different things here. I didn't know. طيب احنا we're almost done عامة يعني. So we've talked about 4 things so far. 4 things to do to be able to help someone go through pain and suffering. Does anyone remember the first thing? Acknowledge and validate their pain and suffering. Even if you don't know what to say, just be there for that person. What's the second thing? Availability and consistency. The third thing, not showing compassion, but being compassionate. Going to the place where it hurts, willingly. And the fourth and the toughest thing to do is practicing silence. Being okay not knowing the answers. Being okay not knowing how to cure that person. Being okay not having a solution to this tragedy or this experience that this person is going through, and accepting it. And listen more to that person rather than think of what I'm about to say. If I'm able to get to this phase at this point, and that person feels accepted by me, then he or she's gonna be able to listen to me. So the fifth thing is being an authentic guide to that person. Because if you start by giving advice and sharing your own experience with that person from the first moment, most likely that person is not gonna listen to you. Because they might be not accepting what they went through yet. They haven't processed it yet. They don't feel safe. Yes, you could be their best friend, but in that specific moment of pain, they might not feel safe to open up and share with you. Or if they open up and share with you, maybe they're not ready to listen to anything that you have to say, even if you have the right answer, even if you know what to say, but if you say it at the wrong time, it's gonna make more damage than any positive impact. So the last thing, or the fifth thing, is being a genuine and authentic guide. When we are no longer, Viktor Franklin said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. How many of you agree with this statement? When we are no longer able to change a situation, we're forced or challenged to change ourselves. How many of you agree with this statement? How often do we do it? Because we can agree in theory that, yeah, if I'm going through something and I can't find meaning, then I have to change how I think. I have to start asking different questions. But how often do we do this? I don't know. Every person is different. But that's the reality of helping another person go through their pain and suffering is that maybe I'm trying to offer a different perspective. Again, I don't know the answer, which is again 99% of the time, I don't know why this person had to go through this. But what I can offer is after they accept and I validate their pain and everything, I'm able to help them think in a different way, challenge their way of thinking and challenge my way of thinking. Those who have a why to live can bear almost any how. Same guy, Viktor Frankl, who survived a concentration camp. That's how he survived. When you read his book, he talks about one specific events that happened that led him to surviving that concentration camp. And he said those who have a why in life are able to bear almost any how. That's another perspective I'm able to offer to another person who's suffering. Not just why did you allow me to go through this? What's the reason? Why me? I'm able to think out loud with that person and start asking different questions with that person. But I have to find my own why first. I can't go in this conversation, me being clueless, trying to help another person who's being clueless, and all of us are just lost together. So I have to find and know my own for any kind of guidance or advice to any person. The wound is the place where the light enters you. That's another thing that we're able to offer. That pain that you're going through, even if it doesn't have any meaning right now, it could be a window that has been opened for something new to come in. And again, remember, if I share all these things with that person in the first encounter with them, 99.8% that person is not going to listen. They're not going to accept anything that I'm saying. I have to go through this journey with that person, willingly go in this journey with other person to be able to offer something else or something different to that person. As you're sharing your guidance and experience with that person, remember to never force your opinion on them. And all of us unintentionally or unconsciously do this, or most of us sometimes. I went through an experience and I failed like a big test, and I'm talking with my friend who failed the same test, and I'm telling him trust me. There's a reason for it. Trust me, kaza. And I'm trying to force my own opinion, and I'm trying to force my own experience. I'm trying to force my own reasoning why God made me go through this on that person. But what if God has a different reason? I heard this from one of my friends a few years ago when we were talking about pain and suffering. He said, every time you talk to someone who's going through pain and suffering, you want to share you want to give something, you want to benefit that person. But what if instead of giving an opinion to that person, you listen to what they have to say? Maybe they know, but they're not willing to accept it yet. Sometimes we know why we went through this, or why I failed this test, or why I lost that person. But deep down inside of my heart, I'm not willing to accept it yet. So maybe instead of sharing giving my own 2 cents, maybe listen to that person. Maybe let them find their own reason and find their own cure or solution as you're going or as you're walking in this journey with that person. Every time there are losses, there are choices to be made. Remember this. Every time there are losses, there are choices to be made. You choose to live your losses as passages to anger, blame, hatred, depression, or you choose to let these losses be passages to something new, something wider, and something deeper. Every time you yourself, we're not talking about the other person, every time you yourself lost something or has gone through something terrible in your life, you have 2 choices. To channel this negative energy and to hate and to resent, which is fine, which is okay for a specific time, or to look at it in a different way. What can I benefit from this? That's your choice to make. No one can force you to do this. No one can force you to think in a different way. And as you're going in this journey with that person, you can't force that opinion on that person. But you can remind them that there are choices to be made, but you can never take that choice for that person. They have to take that choice to look at things differently, to accept things, to realize things. So To recap everything that we've talked about, we said if one of my close friends or family members went through or is going through a painful experience, they lost someone close to them, or whatever experience that they happened, there are a few things to do to help them, to help ease the pain for them. The first thing we talked about is acknowledging and validating their pain. Being there for them, listening to them, crying with them, not knowing what to say. Just validating the pain that has no meaning for them. Tell them, even if it doesn't have any meaning, you mean something to me. Your experience means something to me. Even if I haven't gone through the same exact experience, but you and your experience means something to me. And the second thing I do is I try to be available and consistent on the sufferer's term, not my own term. I don't finish everything and I don't do everything, and then if I have time, I'm going to text them, hey, how are you feeling today? The third thing is being compassionate, not showing compassion. And we said compassion asks us to go where it hurts, willingly. The fourth thing is practicing silence. Being okay that I don't have all the answers. Being okay that I don't have all the solutions. Being okay that I might come out of this conversation more troubled than what I had before. Being okay that I'm going to go in this conversation and I'm going to just cry with that person or listen to that person and not have anything to add. I have to be okay with this. I have to be okay with the fact that I can't decrease their sorrow and I can't increase their joy. I have to be okay with this, to be able to have this conversation or be in that setting with that person. And the last thing is being a genuine and an authentic guide to that person. Once that person feels safe with me, they're going to be able to trust, not anything that I say, but they're going to be able to trust what I have to say. Not forcing my opinion on them, but sharing what worked for me and challenge them to think in a different way or helping them think in a different way. I'm going to end, Betati stuck like 3 hours ago. I'm going to end with this saying for the same author who wrote the book. He said, when we honestly ask ourselves which person in our lives meant the most to us, we often find that is those who, instead of giving advice, solutions, and cures, have chosen rather to share our pain and touch our wound with a warm and tender hand. The friend who can be silent with us in the moment of despair, who can stay with us in an hour of grief, who can tolerate not knowing, not curing, and not healing, and face with us the reality of powerlessness, that is the friend who cares. And that's the person that I'm challenging all of us to be. Being okay with not knowing the answers, and being okay going in this journey or walking in this journey with this person, knowing that I'm going to experience the same pain and suffering that this person is going through. Do you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, objections, anything? Yes?
So it's also true to say that we can't all be that person, because what if we ourselves are not in the right state to provide any of this support? So
Yes. What Karen is saying, that it's okay that I'm not that person yet. Not that I can never be that person. It's okay that I'm going through my own journey and I want to help that person, but I haven't healed yet. I haven't completely or fully healed yet. So sometimes we try to take 2 steps forward and then we end up taking 5 steps backwards. So I need to be okay and accept everything that I went through and realize and go through my own journey to be able to be there for that person, not offer solutions, not offer cures, not offering anything, just being there for that person. So if I'm not that person yet, that's fine. But I try to strive, not just to be that person, but to be there for my loved ones. Not that I'm being forced to do it. I want to genuinely help or be there for my friends. Does that make sense?
yes, but what if the other person's pain can actually bring me down?
Then I need to set some boundaries. Because the idea of me being there for that person is to lift them up in any way, shape, or form. And if that person is dragging me down because my emotional state is not good, my mental state is not good, then I need to set boundaries. Not that I hate that person, but maybe there's a better fit for that person, another friend, another priest, another counselor, psychologist, whoever that person is. So I need to be able to set some boundaries, not to hurt the other person and not to hurt myself too. Any other questions or thoughts? Yes.
What do you do with someone who you've tried to, who you've gone through all these steps genuinely, lovingly, and there's just people who just want to keep themselves down, and it's very hard because it can be very painful
Yes.
to see a loved one just drown in their own suffering without a helping hand, without wanting slapping away the helping hand, you know.
What's your name?
Miguel.
Miguel asked a very good question. What if I'm trying to be that person, I'm trying to offering help, but that person is refusing to change. That person is refusing to leave the bargaining stage or the anger stage, or they want to stay in pain and suffering. They're not willing to listen. And I've talked to them. I got a priest to talk to them. I've tried everything to do. The simple answer is, when we understand the meaning, the true meaning of the word prayer, then we're going to be able to transform that person through prayer. What we think prayer is that I stand in front of God in my room, in church, whatever, and I say a few words. I thank Him, I ask Him for specific things, and then I go to sleep and then repeat the same thing. That's not prayer. Prayer is listening more than talking. When we read about the life of Samuel in 1 Samuel, we see that Samuel understood the meaning of prayer in a different way. He reached a specific stage in his life where he said, "It is a sin against me if I don't pray for my own people." He understood that praying for other people became a responsibility on him. No one is forcing him to pray for his people. No one is asking him, "Did you pray? No one is doing this. But he reached the point where he was able to feel that the day that he doesn't pray for his friends or his family or for whoever is suffering, like there's something wrong, there's something missing. When we reach that meaning of prayer, that I feel that each person I know in my life, whether they ask me to pray for them or not, when I feel that I'm responsible for that person, then this prayer is going to transform that person. Because as I said, we don't know all the answers. And we're never going to know all the answers. And that's why our Christianity, one of the common keywords about Christianity is the word sacrament or a mystery. There are so many things that we are never going to understand as we live on earth. And that's why that meaning of prayer, that I feel responsible for that person, I'm trying to live that person, not physically, but through my prayers, is going to do something. If not today, then tomorrow. I might see it in like my lifetime with that person, or I may die early enough and not see it, or not be there in that person's life and not see the change. But my duty and responsibility is to lift that person up through prayer. So if every word that comes out of my mouth fails, prayer never fails. When I understand the true meaning of prayer, is that I listen to what He has to say to be able to lift that person up. I feel responsible towards that person, not out of compulsion. When someone says to you, "Oh, pray for me," Hadir, Rabbina ma'ak. That's why we say, like, God be with you. But do we intentionally say it? Do we mean it when we say it or not? Do I feel responsible when you share something with me that I have a duty to pray for you every time I think of you, or whenever I run into you, I'm just going to say a prayer and that's it? Does that make sense? Any other thoughts or questions? Okay. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrew, for being with us today. Like I said, Andrew is one of our favorites because he never says no. Everybody will like not respond, or they'll like say like, "Yeah, sure, hopefully one day," but Andrew's always like, "All right, I got you. I'll be there on this day." So it's always nice. Anyway, so as we're used to, we're going to do a burning question. And I'm really sorry that your PowerPoint kind of pooped out on you. Really? You were going through? Yeah, you were at that book by Victor. Yeah, you forgot the name. I think you called it The Meaning of Life. Yeah, Okay, so today's burning question, as you guys know, I want your help, please, on this one. It's actually an extension of the talk, okay? And the person who gave me the question was actually Irene. So, Irene, thank you for the question. So I'm going to put it up on the screen so you guys can have an idea of what it says. And hopefully we can answer it a little bit together right now. Okay, so the question says, what is the difference between a Christian going through healing and a non-Christian going through healing? You guys see that? What is the difference between a Christian going through suffering, and a non-Christian going through suffering? Are non-Christians able to heal in the same way a Christian can if they don't have God? I need everybody's help on this one. Seriously, I was thinking about it as Andrew was giving his talk today. It's actually a really good question. What do you guys think about this? The difference between Christians going through suffering and non-Christians going through sufferings, and if Christians can heal in the same way that non-Christians can, or actually the opposite, can non-Christians heal in the same way that Christians can if they don't have God? You got it? The question is registered? Have you guys thought about this? Anybody thought about this before? Raise your hand. Really? Nobody thought about this before? Only Irene and Mahab. You thought about it before? Okay, tell us your thoughts. Can we have, where is... Oh. Can we have somebody else help? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So the way I think about it would be non-Christians usually their goals only exist on earth.
Okay.
But as Christians, our goals technically should be in heaven.
Okay.
If our ultimate goal is heaven, then all our journeys or all our path that we form in our head will eventually put heaven as an end goal. So the way I heal, if I have a goal at the end, it helps me heal better or in a more uniform manner, unlike attempting to heal without an end goal in sight.
Okay. Okay, it's a very good answer. I mean, I feel like that would conclude the burning question right about now because it's so good. But let me, but when you say about end goal and non-end goal, does anybody agree with what he said? Yeah? You guys kind of got what he said? Karen, you got it? You want to say something? Okay. So our goal is in heaven, but we all live on earth. Right? So we're talking about life now. Yani, I'm a Christian, I belong to God, and then my brother is a non-Christian, he doesn't belong to God. We both go through something super tragic. How is this person able to heal differently from me? Or do we both heal the same way? Because we're both human. Or is there any difference? Is there any lines that we can draw? Like, no, the Christian person, this is his path. The non-Christian person this is his path. Or are they both the same? Does one have benefit over the other? Come on, guys. I keep thinking, but thinking by itself is not enough. You have to talk. So raise your hand. Tell me what you think.
I guess just because it's implying the question of a Christian and a non-Christian. A non-Christian could be like an atheist, or it could be like a person of a religion, and like a person of another religion might say, "Oh, well, I have a God or something." But I think what differentiates it is that Christ suffered and gave his meaning of suffering, his suffering a meaning, and that our own suffering can be meaningful, and just like what the talk was about, which our healing, we can bear our wounds with compassion, not only towards ourselves, but towards other people in that meaning.
I would argue that non-Christians can also use compassion. And I'm not just doing this but I'm just keeping the conversation. I would argue that non-Christians would also use their healings and their wounds as for compassion for others. So
Right.
how is it different?
Well, Christ and
Okay.
his suffering, and
You
he-
share in the suffering of Christ.
right, as the suffering of, for example, the martyrs.
Okay.
Their suffering and Maine's pain had meaning.
Okay. And why, and somebody else, why would I need to share in the suffering of Christ? What does that matter? What if I just do self-help? I pick up self-help books and I read books about mindfulness, or I read books about self-care, or about working out, or feeling better mentally, or motivation. Maybe I go to Tony Robbins and listen to him like give a motivational speech, and I all of a sudden, maybe I go to concerts. Maybe I do any other thing that makes me happy. How is that different?
I think that in the Bible, like God said, like those who are in Christ, He'll always work out things for their good. And I agree, like with the answer that all our suffering, like we have to look at it from like an eternal perspective and like heaven's perspective. And then God also said that the way of the wicked leads to destruction, and like who's the wicked? Like everybody who's not in Christ is like considered that. So I think that although like everybody goes through suffering, God promises like to give joy to his children when they suffer. And I think that, as an atheist or someone who like doesn't believe in God, it's like they just see it as like something else in life that they have to get through, and like it's a problem solved and like, okay, move on. But with Christ, it's like if we look at things with an eternal perspective, we see God's goodness work out at the end if we do it like biblically and like in obedience to him.
Right. Right. That's a very good answer. Very, very good answer. So it's about perspective, right? But is there anything inherently different about suffering in Christ than just suffering in the world? Is there anything that is inherently different in that? No? What do you guys think? What about the claim that, when you try to use Christianity and your faith in God as just a crutch, it's just a crutch, It's like, oh yeah, you have a broken leg, but you just have a crutch, which is your Christianity to kind of lean on. But really, at the end of the day, it's still a broken leg. And it doesn't matter, it's going to take its time to heal. But you just have like this crutch. What about that claim? That Christianity and faith is just a crutch? Yeah, Sam. Oh gosh, okay, here we go.
What's the difference between faith and religion? Are we defining Christianity as a religion or as faith? Because it can go either way.
Give us your flow through of what the distinction could mean.
I believe in having
Up. Yeah.
I believe in having higher faith and just a higher power,
Uh-huh.
okay? And then, like, for example, like Gandhi. A lot of people look up to him because of just his spirituality and his peacefulness and just how much he affected the world. Not just their type of religion, Hinduism, or...
Speak up a little bit.
So, as far as religion goes, because I got that question asked one of my interviews at Loma Linda, and they're very religious, so they asked me what's the difference between faith and religion. I never thought about it that way before, and they had me write an essay on it. So for me, it kind of it stuck with me, because for me, I see orthodoxy as my religion. That's what I identify as. But I believe in a higher power. I believe in God, and that's kind of my faith. So my faith is fixed. My religion, it's a choice that I try to belong to that denomination that is orthodoxy.
I hear what you're saying, but just to make the distinction on that really quick. So we don't believe as Orthodox Christians that we belong to a denomination, right? Because Christianity is often looked at this tree, and this tree has so many branches, and we think about Orthodox Christians as a denomination as part of that. But actually, we are pre-denominational, right? Which means we come before even denominations began to happen, right? Because a denomination is essentially a division. And so Orthodoxy is apostolic. It's an apostolic faith that was handed down from St. Mark, right? Who actually was with Jesus and wrote about him. So Orthodoxy, yes, sure, it's a religion. You can put that label on it. But at the end of the day, it's an expression of the faith. Orthodoxy is an expression of the faith. So when we say our faith is Orthodox, it means that our Christianity, or the expression of our faith, is orthodoxy and traditional in its sense. But going back to this question really quick, the difference between a Christian going through suffering and a non-Christian going through suffering. The problem with this question is that it's got a trap in it, right? And the trap in it is kind of what Muhammad kind of said about a little bit. The trap is it almost gives you the idea that God is separate from human life. That's the problem with this question. And before reading any question, you try to understand, well, why are they even asking this question? What is the point of this question? Well, the question is trying to make a division between man and between God, as if humans can exist without God. And so it becomes very confusing to answer. You're like, Christians and non-Christians? God doesn't even look at it like that. God looks at it as, you're all my children. And as my children, the goal is oneness, is unity, is for me to be with you and for you to be with me. And so this question is essentially saying, what about those who are suffering? They're going to use all these, methods of the world, and those who are Christian, no. It's actually everybody uses God in their life, because we are made on his image and likeness. And just like he suffered, we also suffer. So the question is trappy. It tries to kind of pull your leg a little bit. So I would go further and say that our goal is unity with God. And through suffering, we unite more with God. Why? Because what does suffering do? What do tragic events by nature, what do they do? When we lost Abu Najan, what did we do? We felt emotional, we felt sad. But what was the next thing? It's to look up. We all looked up. In fact, when somebody is hurt, we look up. When there's an accident, we look up. When there's a tragic, we look up. When there's health, we look up. There's a saying that says, everybody has faith until it's getting tested. Right? Everybody has faith. Everybody claims to have faith until it gets tested. Once it gets tested, now show me your faith. So this question is essentially trying to say that there is this vast difference, but no, actually our whole purpose of living through this life is to achieve oneness and unity and closeness to God. And so anything that happens in our life, whether tragic or good or bad, it should bring us closer to God. And how can it bring us closer to God? By prayer. But see, the world wants nothing to do with prayer. The world wants nothing to do with looking up to God. Why? Because the world wants to fix itself internally. I'm telling you, I'm a therapist. My job in therapy is to talk to people about mental health issues and anxiety and depression, all the tragic issues, without bringing God into it. Why? Because there is this move called self-help. You should be able to help yourself within you by positive statements, by mindfulness, by all of these things. But wait a minute. That's going to make me feel good tonight. Maybe tomorrow, maybe I get to practice these things. But what about eternity? Where is my end goal? Where is my salvation? This idea of suffering elevates me to be closer to God. Through prayer. Pope Shenouda says, prayer is the bridge that links man to God. It has been compared to Jacob's ladder, which was set up on earth. Prayer is not just words, but it's a relationship. It's your relationship with God, with your heart and your thoughts. Prayer is the feeling that you are in the divine's presence, the divine being God. But in therapy or in self-help or in, talking to friends or, these are all great things. I'm not saying to negate those things by all means. I'm saying that those who try to pull God out of the equation and just make it about that miss the point of life, right? Miss the purpose completely. So I don't want to have to kind of repeat myself over and over again, but Andrew, do you have anything to add about this that kind of comes to mind?
I think you said it perfectly. There's no distinction between non-Christians or Christians. I think it's the way that we look at pain and suffering, and I feel we have a privilege of knowing that Christ went through it for a reason, not just out of boredom. He decided to come on earth and get tortured and die a painful death or a humiliating death, but he found the reason, or he had the reason. Therefore, that gives me, as a Christian or as a human being, whatever you want to call me, a reason to go through pain and suffering, looking for something. And God deals with people in different ways. And a lot of atheists or non-believers, whatever you want to call it, come to know God and convert and have a different relationship with Him because of suffering, not necessarily because of the blessings. So He uses different ways, and suffering sometimes is one of the ways that He does use.
And real quick, I don't know if you guys know Abuna Dawood Lamai, but he has a channel on YouTube in English, and he calls suffering a school. He calls it a coursework. It's almost like you're going through a curriculum of suffering, because when you finish the curriculum of suffering, guess what? You graduate. When you graduate, you have experience with God. And so those of us who are experiencing grief, loss, tragic health, emotional issues, relationship problems, these are opportunities from God. I believe that these are opportunities from God saying, hey, like, red flag. This is a red flag, signaling you, letting you know that this is the time. This is the time to get closer to God. And I can't help but think that Abuna John's departure and not being with us today, even 4 or 5 months later, is no less of an indication that we should just strive our best to be closer and closer to God and know God more. This is how we honor Him in His church and how we honor God in our lives. Any final thoughts? Good question, Irene. Thank you so much. Good question. But yeah, always try to look deeper into what the question is asking, because they try to throw us off. Irene, you try to throw us off today. All right, guys, let's go ahead and stand up for a quick prayer and a song. We'll go ahead and end. For you have chosen salvation and deal with us according to your goodness. For your good and merciful, let your compassion speedily come to us. Have compassion upon us, O Lord God, our Savior, and have mercy upon us according to your great mercy. Remember those, O Christ our Master, be among us, and proclaim and say, my peace I give to you, the peace of my Father I live with. Emo orantetir, emo inanin, tekherini semnenanin, tekherini kanin novi, nanevo, gorevo, nenigashin teti, ekeliseia ori softeros ennesk, shaine emmeno in pennoti, khenten miti dino khenebo ente beveot, nembeb nev masoel, ente fesmo eron tiren, ente vtovo, ennene hit, ente vtalecho nishan, ente nenepsi shinem, nen soma tenoshtem moko bechristos, nembekyoten agathos, nembeb nev mathoem, jaki en soti em. Through the intercession of Saint Mary, Saint Justine, and all the choir of your saints, hear us and accept our prayers, and we pray thankfully, saying, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us on temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Through Christ Jesus our Lord, for the kingdom, the power, and glory forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. All right, everybody, have a good night. Take care. And a quick idea, كده, I just want to share with you guys, if you guys